and happy 51st Earth Day to our guests here on the Zoom and our viewers on the live stream. I'm Angie Rosser, the Executive Director of the West Virginia Rivers Coalition, one of the 19 groups participating in the West Virginia Climate Alliance. And on behalf of the Climate Alliance, we welcome you to this press briefing and broadcast marking Earth Day 2021 by spotlighting local efforts in our state to address the climate crisis. Our theme today is Act Globally, Act Locally, recognizing that responding to the climate emergency takes commitment and action at every level, including right here in the hills and hollers of West Virginia. Today, you'll hear from Perry Bryant, the lead coordinator of the West Virginia Climate Alliance, who will put into context West Virginia's stake and interest in national and global initiatives and commitments happening this very week to accelerate progress on addressing climate change. And Leah Barber with Moms Clean Air Force of West Virginia will facilitate remarks from local elected leaders who are helping to advance local initiatives right here at home. After this panel presentations, we'll take some questions and answers. So our media friends can post those in the chat as we go, or we'll also be monitoring the live stream on Facebook for question and answers. And again, just to review, a welcome from the West Virginia Climate Alliance. We're a coalition of nearly 20 environmental, faith-based, civil rights, and civic organizations working together in West Virginia to educate West Virginians and our political leaders on local impacts and solutions to climate change. We seek climate solutions that center around three core pillars. One, environmental justice. We must ensure that communities of color and low-income communities are not disproportionately impacted by the transitions to a low-carbon economy. Similarly, we want to ensure a true transition for fossil fuel workers and communities most impacted by energy transitions, and to make sure that those workers and communities have immediate pathways to high-paying jobs and economic resilience. And finally, we are committed to seeing reduction of emissions of greenhouse gases by levels that scientists have determined to be necessary to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. So to kick us off today is Perry Bryant. Perry, go ahead.
Thank you, Angie. Today really is a remarkable day. 1 year ago, the United States was not a part of the Paris Agreement, and we were dismantling our country's efforts to reduce greenhouse gases. Today, we've rejoined the Paris Accord, and President Biden is reasserting American international leadership on the most pressing issue of our times, the climate crisis. The United States' new commitment as part of the Paris Climate Agreement is to reduce greenhouse gases by 50 to 52% by 2030, which is a very bold agenda that will pay huge dividends for our children, their children, and their children. But it's not just the United States commitment that is important. President Biden is also pulling together leaders from across the globe and encouraging them to take aggressive action to address this existential threat. By addressing the climate crisis, we can create jobs in the clean economy. We should not only create jobs installing solar panels and wind turbines, and by reclaiming abandoned mine lands and plugging orphan wells that are the legacy of a fading industry, but also create good paying manufacturing jobs here in West Virginia, making solar panels, making wind turbines, and making batteries to store electricity. While the benefits of moving to a clean economy are very positive, the consequences of failing to act or acting tentatively are likely to be devastating. More frequent flooding like the 2016 1,000-year flood that devastated Clendenin, White Sulphur Springs, and Ridgewood. More frequent and more destructive wildfires in Western United States, in Australia, and in the Amazon. And more intense hurricanes in the Gulf states made worse by sea level rise and warming oceans, all consequences of global warming. We are at an inflection point. It's time for our elected leaders to act and to act decisively. We've lost valuable time and opportunity to address the climate crisis. We must act with a new sense of urgency to not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to ensure environmental justice for people and communities impacted by past practices and ensure a true transition for coal miners and natural gas workers and their communities. Today, we are acting globally for a change, a meaningful change. I'm proud to be here today with elected officials who've been acting locally, including Mayor Steve Williams, the mayor of of Huntington. Mayor Williams has sent along a video in celebration of today's Earth Day event.
Climate change is part of every discussion and it's on everybody's mind, particularly here in West Virginia. We have to acknowledge the brutal facts, is that the energy economy has changed, coal has changed, the markets have changed. It's not to say that we won't continue to have coal, we will, but in our communities, we also have to acknowledge that we need to identify other ways to diversify our economy. The beauty is that small cities, small communities in the nation, around the nation, are the petri dish for innovation. And that's what we have to depend upon right here in West Virginia. In every one of our communities, it starts local. You know what the true evil is poverty. And we address poverty, we address climate change, and we create an opportunity for our people in our towns and in our counties.
Thank you, Mayor Williams, for your acknowledgement that West Virginians will have the opportunity to flourish as we diversify our energy economy. By including renewable energy initiatives into our energy economy, our communities will become healthier and more prosperous. Now I would like to invite Mayor Cavalier to share about local initiatives in Smithers, West Virginia.
You're muted, Mayor. Try again.
You would think by now we'd all have that under control, wouldn't you? So welcome to Smithers, West Virginia, if only virtually. For those of you who are not familiar with Smithers, here's how you can locate us. We are halfway between the capital city of Charleston and the newest national park, the New River Gorge National Park. We are nestled between the Great Kanawha River and the Midland Trail. The Mammoth Preserve is 2 miles from where I sit right now, and the Hatfields and McCoy's ATV Trail is being extended to 2 miles within where I sit. So we are very much an outdoors oriented area. And I am very much a child of the 60s. So when we talk about climate control, when we talk about saving Mother Earth, when we talk about enjoying Mother Earth, that's what I like to hear. And that's what I'm so pleased to be a part of. As an elected official, I really think that I have committed to 2 things. First of all, in the public trust, I think that I'm asked to create and maintain a clean, safe, and attractive community, both for the residents, for the visitors that enjoy our town, and for the businesses who want to do commerce here. But I also have a fiscal responsibility. And that fiscal responsibility means that in creating that clean, safe, and attractive community, I have to make sure all the bills are paid. And as you all know, the bills keep going up and the revenue keeps going down. So I have been looking for ways and am working with the solar co-op to find ways to be more efficient. And one of those ways would be with solar power. So I've enjoyed my time working with the co-op and working with the West Virginia legislature to try to find ways to make solar a part of our public policy. Give you, for instance, on how a local mayor can do that. We just took over a donated building, 32,000 square feet. It had been a school building for 44 years. We now call it the Gateway Center, and we have a daycare center, a senior center, a full health clinic, and several other community services within that building. We found out in taking that over that 44-year-old building that the Fayette County Board of Education had been paying $1,200 a month to the water company for a line that had never had a drop of water through it. Let that sink in. So we are making an investment of $30,000 to change out meters, to change out lines, and we'll be able to cut our water bill by $1,200 a month. Now, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could look at my utility bill and work with solar and be able to not only cut costs to the residents of the city of Smithers, but I have a school building right across the parking lot, an active school building. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could then sell power to them at less than what they are paying now? And everybody wins. The taxpayers win as well as the city of Smithers. So I really appreciate being part of this dialogue. I hope that we can find ways to make cities more efficient this way and to preserve Mother Earth and to take really good care of her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Cavalier. I really enjoyed your description of your home place. It sounds lovely. And I also wanted to thank you for your efforts to increase access to renewable energy and also by promoting wise resource use in your community. I think that's wonderful. And now I'd like to invite Mayor Ron Delaney Jr. to share about climate action in Morgantown.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this event with you today. We're very proud of Morgantown's climate action initiatives over the past years. In a small town like ours, we have to be resourceful and tactical, as our former mayor exemplified, in addressing our community's needs and aspirations. And it's no different regarding this existential challenge of climate change. Much of our city's climate action work and policy initiatives have originated with our volunteer advisory board named the Green Team. And it's one of the ways that we've been able to kind of push forward on this issue. Our Green Team has provided the legwork in developing a climate action plan. And in 2017, as the federal government was turning away from the Paris Climate Accord, our Morgantown City Council turned toward it, adopting it and supporting its goals. At that time, the West Virginia Coal Association criticized our council's resolution, describing the climate accord as, quote, nothing more than a rabbit hole of economic devastation, end quote. I will say this, many communities in West Virginia and throughout Appalachia have over the past 100 plus years taken the brunt of devastating wakes caused by the boom and bust of traditional extraction industries and the industrial developments associated with those. This devastation has affected our economies, our environment, our health, and even our social fabric. Here in Morgantown, we only need to drive a few miles across the river to Scotts Run and consider its history as a case in point, a microcosm of West Virginia itself, perhaps. From 1917 to 32, there were 60 mines operating along a 5-mile valley. In 1930, 4,000 people occupied that area. Today, that area is occupied by about 2,000 people. Back in the 20s, workers came into the area and in some cases were recruited by mining companies. The population was diverse. About 60% were non-English speaking immigrants and about 20% were Black. As technology changed, the mechanization of mining in the 1920s, and then with the Great Depression in 1929, most of the mines were shuttered almost overnight. Those who could leave eventually did, but many were trapped. The devastation was so intense that Eleanor Roosevelt herself had to see it for herself. Upon seeing it, she implored her husband Franklin to do something, and together they initiated the New Deal housing programs. Out of that came the 150 family development of Arthurdale for relocated Scotts Run families. The ugly truth, however, is that only white English-speaking families qualified for that relocation. This boom and bust cycle has caused many of our neighbors and families who can pick up and move to do so. Those who can't are traditionally underrepresented members of our communities. Much like the transition from manual mining to mechanized mining, we're experiencing another technology paradigm shift. Coal has not come back during the past 4 years. Most of the large petroleum companies are seeing the writing on the wall and are diversifying. Our Longview coal power generation plant just down the road from us is doing the same with the addition of a significant solar array. So we were very happy when Morgantown was invited by Pittsburgh Mayor Bill Peduto to participate in and advocate for the Marshall Plan for Middle America. I know Mayor Williams in Huntington is also a participant in that. And basically, we are at the point now where we are ready to bring this forward to our representatives in Washington. But it's a $60 billion initiative that we are advocating that prioritizes the following investments: broadband and telecommunications, energy efficiency and renewable energy generation, zero emissions mobility and transportation, manufacturing and workforce development, and community environmental restoration. The idea is that this would happen within the Ohio River Valley. There are about, I think, 7 or 8 cities that are currently participating in this, and we're looking really to bring other folks on in support and advocacy for this initiative. We think we have a great opportunity here with the Biden administration and the infrastructure bill that's coming, and we hope that we'll be able to move our communities in a more positive direction with that. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor Delaney. And now we'll hear from Morgantown's 2nd Ward City Councilor Bill Kowecki.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree with everything that's been said. The mayor said it quite well. Let me approach this quite differently and be perhaps a little less formal in presentation. We, for example, in Morgantown have always been very understanding of the activities and the necessity for good environmental practices. We began recycling back in the 70s, actually, in Morgantown, and continue to do it today with our local recycling efforts. We have a person on staff, for example. But what this has demonstrated and what has really caused this to happen are the local initiative. You heard the mayor mention the Green Team. We have numbers of organizations that have been volunteers that are not necessarily administrative staff of the city, but people within the community that are working to make a difference, that are interested in moving these things forward. We have a green space coalition that's very concerned about the idea of green space. We have a tree commission that actually makes sure that we have green space planted correctly and that we are addressing the issues that are necessary in order to give us the correct environment. These are all local initiatives that have caused things to happen, like energy audits for our buildings, that we've put in charging stations for electric cars, that we've put LED lights through our downtown area and saved money. These are all small activities that really contribute to a much broader initiative that really are contributing to this solution. Instead of waiting for someone outside to take the initiative to do something, we have acted locally. And quite truthfully, we've been very pleased with the results. And it's the activity of the individuals within the community itself that really cause the people who have the authority to make the decisions, to make them in a proper manner. We really need people within the community to be concerned with what's happening and to help us forward these initiatives. And I'm really pleased to see this activity occur, and this is a great day for us. I hope we move forward. We're moving in the right direction. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you so much. I would absolutely agree that we are moving in the right direction. And I would like to thank Mayor Delaney and Councilor Kowecki for your actions to affect real change at the local level, especially by encouraging community member involvement. Morgantown is a fine example of setting the much needed precedent toward a cleaner and more just future that our West Virginia communities do indeed deserve. So it is now my pleasure to invite former Wood County Commissioner Wayne Dunn to share about his climate action leadership. You are
Wayne,
muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and thank you for what you're doing There have been 20 catastrophes, the most we've ever had in this country in this last year at the cost of billions of dollars. And what you're interested in for me is basically what I've done in Wood County and what our commissioners have done. I want to make a comment about this preemptive legislation that has occurred that is really going to hurt the city and the county level if that's extended or activated to any great extent. But at this point, counties seem to be the leaders and cities seem to be the leaders, not only in West Virginia, but around the country. What have we done as the Wood County Commission? This is several years ago, but it worked out very well. There are things that we can do in our counties and things we can do in the state. Geothermal is one of the huge things that we have to start looking at in the state. We're the top geothermal state east of the Mississippi, so we got to work at that. Wood County can't do much about that, but Wood County has other things. And so what have we done? We've, one of our biggest things, just knowing that the low-hanging fruit is energy efficiency in our homes and our offices, we emphasize that to a great extent. So we started out deciding, okay, what can we do for our county buildings and facilities? So we brought in an engineering firm from Columbus, and they said that we could save about $110,000 a year on our utilities and water. And so that sounded pretty good. So we decided to go along, and we started changing all of our buildings. We put $243,000 into the changes for energy efficiency of our buildings. And with that, the engineering company, Pickering Engineering here in Parkersburg, that was doing this, told us we'd save about I think they said $90,000 a year. So we went through and did this, and we coupled it with a bond issue for our Justice Center, and that worked out very, very well. So anyway, after 1 year, I went back and went through the numbers and found that for that $243,000, we saved between $85,000 and $90,000 right off the bat, and it's more now. So you can see the benefit of the low-hanging fruit. It's only about 4 years, and we've got that paid off, and it's money in the bank. Counties around the state have a real problem with budget. I mean, we just don't have the money. And so we're always trying to save money, and we're trying to use it well. And I will say this for both parties. At the city and the county level, Republicans and Democrats work together, and we work together very well. When a good idea came up, we evaluated it and had it checked out and did some little research on it and followed through. So this home energy efficiency program was one of the things that I was not home energy, but the commission, the county energy efficiency program, I was very proud of because we saved a lot of money. Now, on the other thing with energy efficiency, we also decided to do a program for the public. So this didn't work out so well. It turns out the newspaper didn't like my wanting to make some changes that they didn't want. And so they came out and created a lot of problems with this. But we decided we would do an in-depth study of home efficiency programs around the country and then come up with our own. And we did that. We had like 6 or 7 different cities around the country that set up home energy efficiency programs. And the county commission worked with WVUP, with Gary Thompson there, who was in charge of the energy program at the time. And so we worked together and developed a plan that would have evaluated each individual's home. I mean, there is a cost to this. And then given them a printout, a recommendation as to what they can do to save a lot of money. And they will pay for this very quickly. And it's a very easy thing for them to do, with just insulation, lighting, cracks in receptacles and things like that. So very easy to do. Now, what did we find? Well, of course, we had a problem. And so because the newspaper came down on us over some of this, we just finished it and gave it to the county administrator, and he's filed it away. And we left it at that. However, in the process of doing this, we realized that home energy efficiency programs will not fly in West Virginia or most of the nation at this point. People are people. They don't want to put in money today to get money back in 4 years. So it is a problem for anybody who wants to look at that. However, the program will save millions of dollars for the citizens of that in your county and your towns. So for this to work, the federal or the state government has to come through and provide subsidies of some sort, and it will work. Lots of people are interested in it. Everyone wants to save money. And it's a way of saving tremendous energy. But we saved this before LEDs came about, and we could with the county buildings. Now, the LEDs now, with the homes, they can save much more than what we could have done 7 years ago. Another thing that we did, and this is off the wall, this is the first time I've publicly made a statement as to how we did this. We analyzed our health insurance and decided, why don't we just break this health insurance? We were putting $2 million a year in for our employees. And we thought, what can we do to give them the service and cut the costs? And so we decided to break out the copay, if you will, that we would have to pay. And we took that out and put it into county's bank account, and Blue Cross Blue Shield was very generous and let us do this. And we put it in the bank, and we paid any of the copay that the county people had to pay and took care of that part of the bill. Well, it turns out a huge part of that $2 million, $600,000 approximately, was just for that. And it was a big profit area for Blue Cross Blue Shield. When we did that, we started saving $300,000 to $400,000 a year. Another thing there. So saving money for the people of the county through the county commission is helping the people themselves. There are other conditions that we help, whether it's poverty, recreation, or whatever it is. So those are things that are helpful. An additional thing that we can all do very easily is just get our businesses on board and ask them if they would put up an electric car only sign in their parking lots. They just have to do one or two. And I think most of them will pay for that. And if the county or the city will put it up. We had some of those put in front of our new Justice Center. And it was there while I was county commissioner, but once I was no longer a county commissioner, those signs disappeared. So anyway, from Wood County's perspective, like so many other small counties, we're a little bit limited in what we can do. But what I have found is that Republicans or Democrats, we had one county commissioner that didn't want to do anything as over my 6-year course, and little got done through him. But for the most part, Republicans and Democrats want to listen to each other's ideas at the county and the city level and come up with what's best for their communities, because they're a part of the communities, they benefit from whatever is done, and they feel the same pain as the voter does. With that, that's what we have done in Wood County. And going to the state level, I again say we need research and development on geothermal, because we can, there's huge potential for this. And it will lessen the grip of coal and the carbon industry on the state of West Virginia. And as from what I can see, we're going to have difficulty moving ahead until we get to a better playing field.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. I really do appreciate you sharing all of that. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Just in the interest of time, I don't mean to cut you off at all. Was there anything else that you wanted to add? My apologies if I.
Not at all. I don't.
Okay, great.
15 minutes. I'm fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I do want to thank you for your efforts and leadership in Wood County. I think it's always relative and insightful to hear how the numbers can work to our benefit, especially when we deploy energy efficiency. So I just wanted to thank everybody again. My hope is that the example set by those who joined us today inspires other community leaders to pave their own way and to take actions that will be accretive to the health and economic viability of their own home place. What we do now will surely affect the future our children inherit, and I'm happy to see local leaders taking steps in order to ensure that it's one that we can stand behind in integrity. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you to Leah and all our panelists. If the panelists are willing to hang on for a few more minutes, we'll see if there are any questions from our media guests. there are any questions, you can chat those in or just come off mute and pose a question. Any questions?
Yes, Mike Tony from the Gazette Mail.
Yes, go
Uh,
ahead.
The UMWA released its own energy transition initiative this week that emphasizes carbon capture and storage technology and says little about renewable energy beyond a tax credit expansion in coal-filled areas, while warning that the worker transition can't consist of, quote, the sort of just transition wishful thinking so common in the environmental community, end quote. What's the key to getting labor in general and the UMWA in particular on board with the kind of transformative change that will be needed to combat climate change with a level of aggression required, given that these are good paying, identity defining jobs that workers are being asked to give up in the name of science that they may not fully understand or even believe in some cases. That's for anyone who'd like to take it.
Go ahead, and then I'll follow up on that.
Sure. So I would just say I think, obviously this is an issue that we have discussed as part of our work with the Marshall Plan, and we've actually included members of labor, not the United Mine Workers, but we have included in these discussions unions. And I think the real key, at least from our perspective and in this initiative, is that we're not asking anyone right now to give this up. I mean, we're recognizing that it will be a period of transition. And the hope is, and one of the things that we're asking from the federal government as part of these upcoming measures, is to make available significant funding for workforce development and for starting up in these industries, and to really incentivize the transition rather than. And the idea is that we're not just pulling out and abandoning folks, but it is a transition, but there do have to be the resources in place to help facilitate that. And I think that historically in communities that have been dependent on extraction, I mean, we've seen what's happened to many communities throughout West Virginia when an industry or a company just picks up and moves. And so, I think this is where we're in a position where the federal government actually can help us considerably in this transition.
And I'll follow up on that just briefly, because I agree with Mayor Delaney's statements. I think part of it is we have to recognize and appreciate the sacrifice that has gone in already, particularly among coal miners. And they took our economy from basically an agrarian agriculture-based economy, made it a major manufacturing industry because we had access to energy, and miners provided that energy, sometimes with great sacrifice, whether it was black lung or even death. I think we need to recognize that, and I think we need to develop a whole suite of assets that will allow them to make the transition. I think the funding, for example, of the clean manufacturing jobs in West Virginia would provide an awful lot. It would provide good paying, quality jobs with good benefits, but it's wage replacement, it's training, it's assistance in starting businesses. It would be a whole suite of ideas to do that. At least in terms of the alliance, we are not that far away from the United Mine Workers. I'd like to, hopefully we can have a discussion with them. There were some items in their proposal that we had questions about, but there was nothing that jumped out and said, oh no, this is something we can't do. I think we recognize the service that they've provided to America, and we want to recognize that and provide them with the resources necessary to make the transition.
Just to continue on, if you don't mind, briefly, and piggyback on what the mayor said, it's not a matter of abandoning our responsibility to our community. Certainly, we want to see the transition to a better environment, but that's not at the expense of anyone. What we need to do is consider this thing in total. It needs to be what is good for the community, what is good for society, what is good for our environment. And that responsibility is with us to create a program that does compensate and take into consideration those particular needs and activities. Simple as that.
Thank you for the question and thoughtful responses. Any additional questions before we wrap up?
If I can just follow up quickly, Mr. Bryant, you mentioned some feedback, or rather some thoughts on the proposal that the UMWA released. Were there any prongs of that proposal that stood out that you mentioned you had some thoughts on some of them, or what kind of feedback would you give the UMWA based on what you saw from them?
It was mostly questions and wanting to understand in greater details about what was being proposed. We didn't have any objections what was being proposed. There were just some details that weren't included in there that we'd like to have a better understanding of.
And what I would say, Mike, from our perspective too, I mean, it was a powerful statement and platform to come out, and also to see Senator Manchin standing alongside of the mine workers and centering around their needs. And what I heard from President Roberts in that, what I read into it is an understanding that I think we need to help the nation understand is that it's not just about coal miners and making sure that they have high paying jobs. It's about communities and the state as a whole. And what I heard President Roberts saying is that we need jobs and opportunity, period. Not certainly for coal miners and displaced fossil fuel workers, but we need to transform our economy and absolutely prioritize making sure that those jobs are high quality, good paying union jobs. And I think, that's something I would like us all as a statewide community to get behind and encourage leadership from Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, and as Congress starts negotiating and working through a suite of infrastructure bills and package, that those types of needs that West Virginia faces are front and center. And I think standing with the United Mine Workers and other sectors of our economy that are going through transition and decline, we need to stand together. And this is our moment, I think, politically and economically to turn this thing around in a way that also addresses the climate challenge. It's the win-win-win. And as you heard from our panelists, saves taxpayer money, saves West Virginians money, saves it on their electric bills. We can't go wrong. Okay, any other questions? Well, thanks again to our panelists and our media guests and everyone out there in the live stream sphere. We are going to close things with a video where you will get a series of West Virginians from around the state commenting on why they care about climate change and what needs to happen. And happy Earth Day again to everyone. Take care.
Hello, I'm Angela, a retired nurse and school nurse. I live on the Elk River, and as you can see today, it is beautiful, but it isn't always so because of flooding and high waters. In 2016, my community and my family were devastated by the flood. Our children are still paying the consequences of that flood. They go to school in portables, and many are still displaced from their homes. I care about climate change because of the health of my community and the future of our children.
Hi, I'm Jill Watkins. I'm a small business owner in Charleston, West Virginia, and also a member of Citizens Climate Lobby. And climate change is important to me because I do a lot of backpacking throughout Appalachia, and I see the effects that climate change is having on native plant species and animals throughout the region. I really hope that people get out into nature as much as possible so they can see how beneficial it is to us. We need all of the services that nature provides for us, and climate change is going to negatively affect that.
Hi, I'm Steve Knudsen, a physicist and an avid bicyclist. I am concerned about climate change because rising temperatures and extreme weather events will affect my family, my community, and my fellow West Virginians.
I'm Gail Bellamy. I'm a retired professor in medicine, a grandmother of 3, and a great aunt to 7. I'm concerned about climate change because of its effect on health through things such as extreme weather events, infectious disease, diminishing water supplies, and food insecurity.
Because our Madre Tierra is screaming at us to do something. Fires, droughts, extreme weather, hurricanes. Our Madre Tierra is telling us that we need to act now. We have the technology, we have the innovation, we have the resources, and most important, we have the political ambition to get it done. Es tiempo de hacerlo. El tiempo es ahora.
About taking bold action to arrest the climate crisis and to avoid the worst effects of it. I care about rising sea levels, extreme weather, more frequent and intense hurricanes. I care about the availability of fresh, clean drinking water. There's so many things that I care about and want to take action on. But one of the main reasons I care about the climate crisis and taking action is closer to home.